November 30th, 1994. New York City. Winter had settled over Manhattan, bringing not only the cold, but an invisible tension that clung to the streets. This was not the New York of postcards. Behind neon-lit storefronts and glowing marquees, the hip-hop world was boiling with internal contradictions. The line between trust and betrayal was fading day by day. The conflict between the East Coast and the West Coast had not yet become an official war. Newspapers weren't writing about it. Record labels refused to acknowledge it. Artists denied it on camera. But inside studios, backstage hallways, and behind closed doors, everyone felt the same thing. Something was coming, an unavoidable breaking point. And that night, that breaking point would not happen to a city, it would happen to a body. Tupac Amaru Shakur was 23 years old, but the weight he carried was far heavier than his age. A year earlier, a sexual assault case had exploded into the public eye, placing him under siege, not just legally, but mentally. The media no longer portrayed Tupac as an artist. He was framed as a threat. Headlines labeled him out of control, dangerous, and criminally inclined. Mounting legal fees, growing debt, and the looming possibility of prison hung over him like a sword of Damocles. With every breath, that blade seemed to drop lower, reminding him that the end was approaching. At this point, Tupac was no longer just a rapper. He was being watched. He was a hunted symbol, and New York was the perfect stage for that hunt. The chain of events began with what appeared to be a simple phone call. Quad Recording Studios, one of the beating hearts of hip-hop, a place where legends walked in and out daily. From the outside, it looked like any other studio building, but inside, money, ego, and power struggles circulated freely. The offer was straightforward. Tupac was asked to feature on a track by Little Sean. The intermediaries were familiar names, DJ Ron G and Booker. Both were close to the Bad Boy record circle and well-known in the industry. They were supposed to inspire trust, and on the surface, they did. The agreed payment was $7,000, cash. By today's standards, that might not seem like much. But at the time, for Tupac, crushed under legal expenses, it wasn't just a fee. It was a chance to breathe. Still, something felt off. Tupac sensed it. Later, he would tell people close to him. Everything felt too easy. But Tupac wasn't someone who backed away from danger. When he sensed it, he walked straight toward it. That was his strength, and it was also his curse. 20 minutes past midnight, 12:20 a.m., address 723 7th Avenue, just steps from Times Square. The building was ordinary, one of thousands in New York, but within that ordinariness, death was waiting quietly. Tupac wasn't alone. With him were his manager, Freddie Moore, a member of the Thug Life Circle, and one of the most critical figures of the night, Randy Stretch Walker. Tall, big-built, street-hardened, one of the men Tupac called his brother. And this is where fate made itself felt for the first time. The moment Tupac stepped out of the car, his instincts went on alert. The men standing outside the building didn't belong there. They were in their 30s, wearing military-style camouflage. They didn't look like street guys. They didn't look like music industry people. He glanced upward for a split second.
Yo, hey, y'all still out here? Come on up, man. Party's live. Everybody
Lil
inside.
Cease, one of Biggie's closest associates. Was he really there? Did their eyes meet? Those questions were never definitively answered. But in Tupac's mind, that image would never disappear. He didn't turn back, because to Tupac, turning back meant defeat. The moment they stepped into the lobby, everything happened. 3 men in military camouflage moved in like shadows. Their faces were unclear. Their voices were cold. They were holding 9mm pistols. The command was short and direct. Get down, give us the jewelry. Freddie Moore hit the floor, so did the others. But one man didn't, Tupac Shakur. Surrender went against his nature. He believed that survival sometimes meant resistance. He reached for the Glock at his waist, and in that single second, the course of hip-hop history changed forever. The first shot echoed through the lobby. The bullet grazed the side of Tupac's head, tearing his scalp. Blood poured down his face. Most people would have fallen. Tupac didn't. The second bullet skimmed the back of his skull. Miraculously, the bone wasn't shattered, Medically, his odds of survival were already extremely low. The third bullet struck his groin. This was no longer intimidation. This was a message. The fourth bullet tore into his thigh. His body could no longer support itself. His knees gave out. The fifth and final bullet passed through the hand holding the gun. That wasn't random. That was a signature. 5 bullets, 2 to the head, 2 to the lower body, 1 to the hand. This was more than an attack on a rapper. It was an attempt to silence a threat. Freddie Moore was also shot in the abdomen. But from the beginning, the focus was clear. Tupac was the target. And here's where the most disturbing detail emerges. Stretch Walker, a large man, street experienced, someone who, under normal circumstances, would have been expected to react instinctively. Instead, he went down, stayed still. He wasn't hit by a single bullet. As shots rang out in the lobby, Stretch came out untouched. Tupac lay bleeding on the floor, and Stretch didn't have a scratch. This detail was never fully explained. But in Tupac's mind, it meant one thing. He had been left alone. The attackers took the jewelry, roughly $40,000 worth of chains and diamond rings, and later allegedly returned to grab a Rolex watch. If this was a robbery, why come back? If this was an execution, why wasn't it finished? That contradiction sat at the center of everything. The gunman fled. The lobby fell silent. Amid the smell of gunpowder, blood, and broken breathing, Tupac did something medicine still struggles to explain. He stood up. This wasn't reflex. This was pure rage. He stepped into the elevator, looked at his reflection. Blood from his head had soaked his bandana red. That elevator ride marked the passage between the old Tupac and the new one. When the doors opened on the 8th floor, Tupac was no longer just a wounded man. What entered that room was a statement. A man who had taken 5 bullets and was still standing. A silent confrontation for everyone inside. Inside the studio were Sean Puffy Combs, Andre Harrell, and in the corner of the room, the notorious B.I.G. Christopher Wallace. The music stopped. The conversations died. No one moved. What Tupac expected was simple. Instinct. Someone running. Someone calling an ambulance. But what happened instead was nothing. No one touched him. No one asked if he was okay. No one moved to help. Just stares. Cold, distant, uncomfortable. Years later, Tupac would describe that moment like this. You think you killed somebody, then that person walks back in the room. That's the look they had. In that instant, one thought crystallized in his mind. This wasn't just a street robbery. This was something internal. When the ambulance sirens cut through the Manhattan night, Tupac was placed on a stretcher. He was losing blood. His body was in shock, but he was conscious. And as cameras swarmed him once again, reporters, photographers, flashes, history was captured. As he was wheeled toward the ambulance, Tupac lifted his head, raised his arm, and flipped off the cameras. This wasn't reflex, it was deliberate. A silent, defiant message. Not just to the press, but to that night, the betrayal, the system, and everyone who had brought him there. That image would appear in newspapers the next day, and it stopped being just a photo. It became a symbol. Tupac Shakur saying, "I'm still here." At Bellevue Hospital, doctors immediately grasped the severity of his condition. 2 gunshot wounds to the head, major injuries to the groin and thigh, a bullet through the hand. Under normal circumstances, this meant long surgery and intensive care. But to Tupac, a hospital wasn't safety, it was vulnerability. So he made an unusual call. The Fruit of Islam was summoned. Nation of Islam security arrived in black suits, silent and imposing. The hospital atmosphere shifted instantly. Police were uneasy, doctors were nervous. But for the first time, Tupac felt a sense of control returning. Still, it wasn't enough. Hours later, against all medical advice, Tupac checked himself out of the hospital. Medically, it made no sense. Psychologically, it was survival. Because to him, the real danger had only just begun. On the morning of December 1st, 1994, Manhattan woke up to a new image. A man who had taken 5 bullets the night before sat outside a courthouse in a wheelchair. His head was bandaged, his body weakened, but his eyes still burned with defiance. The press was there, cameras, endless flashes, This moment became one of the most iconic images in hip-hop history, because this wasn't just a defendant arriving in court, it was a body shot in the street now facing the machinery of the state. When the jury delivered its verdict, the picture grew even darker. Tupac was acquitted of the most serious charges, but he was convicted of first-degree sexual abuse. Sentence: 1.5 to 4.5 years in prison. For Tupac, this wasn't justice. This was the system. Yesterday, someone tried to kill him in the street. Today, he was being silenced legally. And right here, this is where everything inside Tupac Shakur changed. Friendship no longer mattered. The industry no longer mattered. The law no longer mattered. Prison didn't calm him, it reshaped him. The poet and activist gave way to suspicion, rage, and strategy. The birth of Machiavelli began right here.